All right, let's get started. Welcome, everybody, to our webinar on Agentforce. I'm Tom Hebner. I'm the Vice President of our Agentforce practice at NeuraFlash. And if you are new to NeuraFlash and wondering who we are a partner of Salesforce and Amazon, and we've been in the AI space for a long time. A bunch of the employees here and founders of the company came from a company called Nuance Communications, and we were building a contact center AI automation systems for a couple decades, 2.5 decades. I actually put the first, me and our co-founder, one of the co-founders, Jim Hunt, put live the first natural language phone system. It would be called a voice bot today. Put it live in 2001, before it was called AI, running on the same predictive AI technology that's still around and still in lots of these applications and bots. But today we're talking about Agentforce, which is the first commercial version of generative AI. And NeuraFlash was founded as an AI company, and we're the first company to be building bots on Salesforce. We were actually started a company a couple months before Einstein was announced, and then we became the #1 Einstein bot partner, building hundreds of Einstein bots out in the market. And then when Salesforce launched Service Cloud Voice, we became the #1 partner on Service Cloud Voice, and I'm smiling because the inventor of Service Cloud Voice is also on this webinar with me, which is exciting. And we became the #1 partner for Voice too, because of our experience. And we were also, because of that experience, we were selected as the only partner in the private beta for Agentforce. So we've been building applications, Agentforce bots for customers right now. So very excited to be here and share some of the learnings that we're seeing and how the technology really works, and get under the hood a little bit and see how it actually works. So let me jump in, not talk too much here. Introduce our team. So me, I mentioned already, VP of Agentforce. Dane Peterson's here, our Director of Innovation and our Gen AI practice lead. Really, if you're looking at the two of us, Dane knows everything. And technical folk, to all the technical folks that are on here and want to know details, he's the one who will be diving in. And then Patrick Barry, as I mentioned already, he was the inventor of Service Cloud Voice at Salesforce, one of the leaders of product management over there. We're extremely fortunate to have him at NeuraFlash, and he is in and around everything we're doing with Gen AI and now with Agentforce, building out products and things to supplement what's been launched by Salesforce to make it even more beneficial for our customers. So I will hand it over now to, here's our agenda. Understanding Agentforce first, a live demo, which everyone's excited about, how to get started, and any questions you might have. So Patrick?
Awesome. Thank you so much, Tom. And great to talk to all the attendees. Thank you for taking time out of your day to spend it with us. So I'd like to talk a little bit about, kind of what Agentforce is and its current capabilities. We'll start from there. And then, as Tom said, we'll kind of move forward, in taking a look at it and talking about how to get started. So, recognizing that there's a lot of different levels of knowledge, out there in the market right now, this is something which is new and being pushed hard and talked about a lot. So I want to give a little bit of a baseline, for, where it sits and kind of how we see it operating today and where it's headed. So first of all, we're really excited about, the launch of Agentforce, and I'm particularly excited about the connection of data, AI, and automation to really allow AI to get work done, to actually accomplish tasks, to actually move your business forward, and to take things off the plate of your employees where appropriate. Agentforce itself is a platform that Salesforce has launched to build agents. Agents are sort of resources that get work done that you can build, and we'll talk about how you build those and what they can accomplish here in a little bit. But it's really the combination of next-gen AI plus data powering automation. And of course, Salesforce sits at the center of so much of your business-critical data. That's a great starting point. Also is the UI for many of your employees, whether it be in sales or service or marketing, et cetera. And of course, then is a natural place to kick off automation from, even if that automation spans across multiple systems. So the combination of generative AI helping to make decisions, helping to decide what should be done based on the data that you have and the data you give it access to, and then actually being able to take that action is really the power of what we see Agentforce doing and what we're helping customers achieve today. It really also elevates Salesforce again as a system of action. Back in the day, I remember, talking a lot about Salesforce as a system of engagement, the layer from which you discuss with your employees, whether it be sales or service. And of course, based on the data that they have, the concept of Customer 360. But now with the connection between that data and then AI and automation, it becomes a system of action, the place where work happens, whether that's being done by your employees, done by these agents, or a combination of the two things. And so Agentforce from a business perspective is about accomplishing those tasks using that AI data and automation. And in fact, in 2 weeks, Salesforce will be GAing those features that they talked about at Dreamforce and launching 3 specific Agentforce agents for service, for sales, and for sales coaching. Those agents then, help you take sort of tier 1 work off of the plate of your team and help accomplish that work in a very accurate and efficient way using these agents that you create. That means that your people can focus on the more complex and higher value work, like, for example, actually closing a deal or working with a customer and empathizing with them about a sophisticated problem that they have in service. That gives your people the power to then lean into those tasks while other tasks are taken off their plate and done for them through this combination of data and automation. Now, the cool thing about this platform is that it doesn't require coding. It doesn't require deep knowledge of prompt building. In fact, the way that you build agents is really using natural language. And then that natural language can be interpreted by the AI itself to create the instructions that it's going to follow. So you decide what tasks you're going to complete, and then you give it instructions on how to do those tasks. And you can point it to the data that you already have, data that may be as you're in your CRM, data that may be part of Data Cloud, data that may be just PDFs that you send around to your employees, your knowledge base, and you don't have to rewrite or restructure that data. So the combination of natural language instructions and then pointing it at the data that you already have means that this is something that's really accessible to everybody who's out there. This doesn't require, months-long training of a bot. This doesn't require restructuring your knowledge base to be in a question and answer pair. This doesn't require you to have all structured data. Unstructured data will work too. And we'll talk about some of those, results that you can get. One of the things that's behind the scenes here is what Salesforce calls an engine that happens to be named Atlas that takes that comment. So simply by giving the data that's relevant to this decision making, perhaps pointing it at a set of rules that you have, or pointing it at a guideline or a desktop operations manual, and then allowing it to make those decisions is really where the power comes from. The idea that there's no code, that you don't have to predefine branches, that you don't have to build dialogue flows, it means that the business can be much more involved in creating these and leading to those business outcomes. You don't have so many conversations between, let's say, IT and the technical side and the business, in terms of trying to translate the requirements and how to execute those things. It's much more, user-friendly in terms of how to create these capabilities, and then the power comes from that decision-making and the automation that goes on the end of it. It also means that you can use your expertise and the development that you've already put into your Salesforce instance for things like flows or Apex or profiles, and of course your data that's already there or data that you may want to add. All of that is now leverageable by simply creating these agents to do specific work and get specific tasks done. The possibilities are really broad. Obviously, the specific areas that have been launched now, are focused on the sales use cases, the service use cases, and sales coaching. But you can point the data to a knowledge base, point it to your website, point it to your FAQs. You can write really simple instructions in English about, take this query from the customer and then compare it against our rules. And if it, matches the rules, if the question, is within the bounds, then approve it, or, then escalate to a person or whatever your business path might be. one example of what you can do here that was on the show floor at Dreamforce was really interesting to me. It was a very simple use case of a agent who was configured to approve expense reports if they met policy, or if not, to escalate that to a person for follow-up. But the way that you could program it was simply by writing about 3 sentences that basically said, here's the data for where the expense reports come from. And the policy is this PDF document, which is just what they send to employees for the expense report policy. If those 2 things, match, if the expense report is within the guidelines that are contained in this 100-page PDF, then approve it. And if not, escalate to a person. And that's all that had to be created in order for that agent to actually be able to do work and help that business move forward. So not only is it easy and approachable, but it opens up, these wide apertures for the different kinds of things we might do together. And one of the things that I really appreciate about it, because of the connection to the automation and getting work done, is that the ROI story is very direct. The investment that you make with us or with, and with Salesforce to accomplish these kind of tasks is ending up with tasks being accomplished, work being offloaded, higher accuracy, higher efficiency. That is a very direct connection. So it's really easy for us to build a use case for you about what makes sense to do for your business, what would that investment look like, what does that payoff term look like, and which areas maybe don't make sense also. But that direct connection to ROI is something that's been a little bit difficult with some of the prior iterations in this space, including something like Copilot, which is really focused on, mostly on giving suggestions or recommendations, whereas Agentforce takes it to the next level and actually completes work. As we look forward to where this is headed, first of all, one of the gaps that exists today is that these agents are focused on those 3 use cases. There will certainly be many more use cases and many more areas that are covered by agents in the future out of the box. Of course, we can build all of those now as well, but those will include things like marketing, commerce, by industry, like financial services, manufacturing, high tech, retail. They will all have, out of the box bots at some point. Of course, the voice channel is also not covered today by the Agentforce capabilities that are just recently launched. Salesforce made an acquisition recently of a company called 10x that specifically will solve that gap. So that's going to be important as well. And today, what Agentforce agents are capable of doing in terms of those conversations is really around plain text, input and output for the most part. We'll see a lot more fidelity coming in terms of visuals, both in terms of what Agentforce will output, but also in terms of what Agentforce will understand, where you can send it a picture and then ask it questions, or send it a picture and have it take action about what part seems to be broken in the picture, and therefore, schedule a follow-up, et cetera, et cetera. So we're super excited about, what this means for how we can help customers drive their business forwards. We are an outcome-based company. So the connection to ROI is really important to us and important to our conversations with our customers. This is a huge leap forward in the evolution of this technology. We are super excited it's available now, and really looking forward to what we can do with you and how it will evolve in the future. We are already building out many of our own variations of this, some of which we'll talk about a little bit later. So with that foundation, I'd love to hand it over to Dane, who's going to walk us through some real examples so we can see what it looks like in real life.
Awesome. Thanks, Patrick. Yeah, and so I want to take a few moments to actually get into a bit of a live demo, and then we'll see the user experience, or our customer's experience here, and then we'll actually jump into the building blocks. So for those of you who might be asking, well, okay, how is it done? We will get to that after we get through kind of a user experience demonstration. So I'm just going to share my screen here. And we're going to do a demonstration for NeuraFlash, who is a fictitious high-end audio company specializing in headphones, speakers, and car audio. So we'll get started on this. So let's watch basically an interaction between a potential customer looking for headphones and the NeuraFlash Agentforce assistant that will help provide the best recommendation. So through this interaction, we can see how NeuraFlash Agentforce Assistant can help guide the customer through a series of questions that directs the customer to the right recommendation. The customer can even ask clarifying questions when they are unsure of the decision to make, such as clarifying if over-ear or in-ear typically have better sound quality. So as we go through the list of questions, it's important to note that this isn't predefined, much like what Patrick mentioned. This is just a set of instructions pointing to the features that may be important to customers. So Agentforce finds out more as it goes through these conversations. As the customer gets to the point of a recommendation and in this scenario, it's the pair of NeuraFi Ultra headphones, Agentforce can even take action to add the product to the customer cart, right? So it's the mixture of being able to have that conversational dialogue as well as performing action, right? Whether it be adding to a cart or whether it be searching up products that it can recommend. And so that's an experience that you can get with Agentforce with fairly low effort of implementation. So I'm going to flip back to some slides here. And I do want to call out, if anybody does have any questions that they'd like answered, we will look at having a Q&A at the end. So if you want to pop in your questions into the Q&A box within the webinar, we will try to get to those towards the end of this, towards the end of the webinar. I'll just share my screen here. So let's look at how this is actually built out. So let's look at the building blocks of Agentforce, right? It's not overly complex. The building blocks include topics. And these are, for those of you who have been involved within bots historically, these are very similar to intents. They describe the areas that your AI agents support, right? Then we have instructions. So these are basically, how should your agent act? What should it do? What shouldn't it do? And it's written in just plain English. You know, this isn't codified. This is plain English instructions that tell your AI agent how to work. The next is actions. Just like what we saw with the add to cart action, this is what your agent can perform. So what access are we giving to your AI agent, right? And the interesting thing with actions is it's not just specific to Salesforce. You can actually leverage integrations as part of your actions. So you can have your Agentforce agent actually supporting with information that might be out of another system, like your order management system, right? Or your ERP, because it can look up information and it can even perform actions within those other systems as well. And the final one that I will say in most of the material that has kind of come out during Dreamforce, there wasn't as big of a presence on this, but the last piece is actually the data library. So what a data library is what information within knowledge does your Agentforce agent actually have access to? For those of you who have really robust knowledge, you might not want Agentforce to be giving answers from all of that knowledge, especially if you're looking at building a product recommendation bot. You probably only want to show them or use the knowledge articles that are related to the products that you may actually be recommending. So let's actually build one together for NeuraFi. So let's go through the topics, instructions, and actions that we might actually look at running within a Agentforce agent, much like we saw during our demonstration. So it always starts with our topics, right? So we can give an agent a number of topics, and it will intelligently decide which topic the customer is usually talking about, and then go into that topic. So the first topic that we might want to put in for NeuraFi is the product advisor, right? That's the topic that we kind of saw in the demonstration. Other scenarios, since this is kind of more of a retailer, is a general question, right? Maybe a general question topic, so we can answer basic questions about NeuraFi or about other processes within NeuraFi. We might look at things like warranty support or order support, right? Now, this isn't an exhaustive list, but for demonstrations of building one together. These are the 4 topics we're going forward with. Let's jump into how we would build out the actual product advisor itself. So going into the product advisor topic, we're going to build out the instructions. And so you can build out a long list of instructions, which there are definitely best practices when it comes to what instructions you want to put in based on how you want the agent to converse with your customers. And so some of those things are about being concise. You know, we don't want necessarily our agent to ask 20 questions to get the customer to a recommendation. We only want them to ask 3, right? The 3 most important questions. We might also look at having it look at what filters or features actually matter to the customer, right? And so we're giving it a prompt to use an action to understand what features they can actually base a recommendation off of. Another one is, hey, look, we don't want you to just say any products, right? We only want you to recommend products that come from our own catalog. And so we're saying only recommend products based on the products returned from our get products action. And then finally, our last instruction is, you know, when recommending a product, always ask if they want to add that product to their cart after recommendation, right? So we can improve that conversion. And so you'll see that instructions aren't necessarily just instructions by themselves. Sometimes they actually refer to the actions that we want the NeuraFi agent or your Agentforce agent to run, right? So we've kind of made callouts to get filter options, which is the action that's going to return us the features, right? Noise canceling versus not noise canceling, over ear versus not versus in ear. These type of filter options that we can actually base a recommendation off of. We'll also have an action that gets the product list. It returns the products that we can actually present back to the customer. We could have search knowledge. So when we saw that question of what's better, you know, what has better sound quality, over ear or in ear, we can use a knowledge article to help base the response on what typically has a better sound quality. And finally, that last action of add to cart, where we have a automation on the back end to add that product to the cart. So I want to take a quick glance into the actual builder itself. So we've seen the front end. We've just built one via a beautiful slide deck. Now we're going to actually jump into what the builder looks like. And this is one of the things that I'll call out. I've worked with a number of different AI agent capabilities and platforms. I've worked within many different Gen AI solutions. The builder for Agentforce is one of the best ones that I've seen and the best ones that I've used, because it is very clear to interact with, and it also acts as a testing suite. So you can test out your agent as you're building it. It's not like you have to go deploy it somewhere and then, you know, try to test it out with the new deployment. You're building it and you're testing it all in one interface. And we're going to kind of get into that. So this is the NeuraFi retail assistant that we've seen. The first thing that we've started off with is the 2 topics that we've put into here. And we could add other topics if we wanted to. I'm going to go into the recommended product, which is our product advisor topic. And we're going to see the information that I can put in. So I can put in the topic recommendation, the classification description, which tells the Agentforce, what is this topic actually about? When should I go into this topic? The scope, so how should the agent really act? And then the instructions, right? We went through all of these instructions, right? Like ask the user no more than 3 questions. It's all just plain English, how we inform the AI agent. And so it makes building this out quite quick. Then we can add actions to a topic. So in this scenario, I've got the get list of products action and the add product to cart action. And this is using the actions that you probably actually already have built in your system. This uses flows. And for those who are familiar with development, it also can use Apex, right? So you have pretty much unlimited possibilities of what that flow or Apex can do, including integrations. So when we click into a topic, we can actually look at how a conversation will play out using the AI agent that we've just built. So we have a conversation on the right side of the screen that I've already gone through here, which shows us what the response would be from our AI agent. But the thing that's very interesting is that in the middle here, I actually have what is Agentforce thinking as I go through this conversation. And so you can see what my question was. I can see what Agentforce thinks of with which topic I should go into. It thinks about what actions it should perform. It performs those actions. It shows you what the output and the input to those actions are. And in this case, we used get list of products. And then it can interpret the response. And for those of you who are a bit more on the technical side, you might recognize that this is like a mixture of JSON and HTML in this response here, which is really hard for even, if I'm looking at this, I can't really interpret it. But what this actually is saying is a list of products, and Agentforce is able to interpret this and then actually give a response here of, here are some great options for over-the-ear wireless headphones. It can format it correctly and make sense of what might have been a bit more of a messy response to interpret. And it can give you that back in a, excuse me, a very easy to understand mechanism. So this builder is amazing for those admins out there that are looking at building AI agents. I highly, highly recommend you to play around with it and just follow the train of thought that Agentforce is going through, because it'll help you understand how you can leverage Agentforce for more. And it's quite amazing what you can drive through basic and simple actions without over tailoring it to Agentforce, right? So this is the builder. Highly recommend that if you can, to play around with it. There are trailheads out there to play around with it. And if you have it active in your org, it's a amazing builder to try out new use cases with. So we're going to flip back into some slides here. So one thing that I do want to call out is, where can you get started? Because each business is in a bit of a different scenario from what they have from a technical landscape right now. It is true that you need messaging for in-app and web in order to run Agentforce, right? So you need what's called Meow for short, one of my favorite acronyms. But not everybody has transitioned to Meow. So how can you go forward with piloting Agentforce when you're in a different scenario? Maybe you're on legacy chat, live agent, right? Or maybe you're actually using a third-party chat and you're just using Salesforce as your agent desktop, right? Or maybe you are on Meow. What should you be looking for when you're doing a pilot? And so we're going to jump into those different scenarios here for a little bit as we get started with Agentforce. So the first one is if you're on legacy chat, or potentially you're using a third-party chat, or honestly, even if you don't have a chat. What do we typically recommend when you're looking at piloting Agentforce? So, and this is specifically if you are on legacy chat, you can see that in option 1, there is essentially your standard bot that you would have, right? So you have your legacy chat up with your existing bot on potentially your support site, right? What we would recommend is, when you're looking at Agentforce and looking at piloting Agentforce, you look for maybe a net new use case, right? That you might have not been able to handle historically, that isn't as related to your legacy bot, right? And you can add Agentforce onto a different part of your web page, right? So that way you're not conflicting with your standard bot scenario, and you don't have to do a large migration to Meow right off the bat just to pilot, right? And so an example of this is if you have a support site, but you also have as we saw, like a retail front or a storefront site, you may look at putting Agentforce on your storefront to help with a product recommendation, and keeping your standard bot on the support site for support. The other option that we will often go with for pilots is this kind of idea of A/B testing or testing Agentforce during certain hours, right? Or within certain geographies, right? So you'd run your standard bot for most of the day, and then, let's say during the lower volume hours, when you're trying to test out Agentforce, you would actually switch it so it's not showing your standard bot and it's actually showing Agentforce instead, right? So there's two options there for how you may look at piloting Agentforce if you're on a legacy chat or other third party. Now, let's say you are actually on Meow right now and you don't have a bot, right? So what we would usually propose here for a pilot is putting in a very basic bot, extremely basic Einstein bot, with a couple use cases. Any of the use cases that you are going forward with a pilot for Agentforce, that Einstein bot would route to Agentforce directly, and Agentforce would handle those use cases. Everything else, you continue your existing routing to your agents. Agentforce would have the ability to escalate to your agents as well. But with this, you are able to test out Agentforce in a bit of a safe, scoped manner without necessarily having Agentforce handle every single one of your inbound requests, right? And again, there's nothing wrong if you want to expand this and have Agentforce look at more use cases, but we're kind of giving the options for those who want to pilot this, which most folks are in a pilot mentality right now and a or specific use case mentality right now. And then the final one is if you're using Meow with a bot. So the beautiful thing is we're not talking, what you should be doing or what you should be looking at is how do bots and Agentforce play well together? The one thing I really want to call out is that Agentforce, if you have a well-functioning Einstein bot or bot, Agentforce isn't necessarily there to replace everything that bot is doing. It is there to provide an extra layer of deflection in the scenarios where your bot normally would have transferred to an agent. So that's the way to think about this when you're using Meow with a bot, is you look at your Einstein bot, you look at where those transfer points were, and you think of where could Agentforce fit in as that transfer as opposed to going to an agent. And so it's a really easy way to measure ROI because now you can look at the increase in deflection through your regular processes of Einstein bot. It doesn't require you to change your Einstein bot. It just adds that extra layer of deflection. And then if Agentforce can't solve it, you still always have the opportunity to transfer that to a real human agent afterwards. So those are kind of the three scenarios that we see a lot of customers in, and a bit of a guide of where to go when you're looking at completing a pilot. So with that, I do want to turn it back over to my friend Tom here.
Thanks, Zane. That was awesome. And just for anyone that's been in this space for any time at all, this is the most exciting time. I was with a customer yesterday, and the gentleman from Salesforce that was with me was saying how he can't remember a time when things were changing this fast and there was such a incredible technology. And I feel the same way. It's been, I said the first application I put live with the AI was in 2001. That technology didn't change for 25 years. So I was just kind of putting it in different modes and adding personalization, like doing tweaks and tweaks and tweaks to the core tech. And finally the core tech has made a huge advancement. So just watching Dane, seeing it in action, and then seeing how you build it and what's behind it is amazing. So the question is, how can we help? What can NeuraFlash do to help you on this journey? So there's a few things that to keep in mind. So both Patrick and Dane talked about how it's easy. You don't need to know code. So it's easy in terms of you don't have to learn a language, you don't have to learn JSON or know anything about how to actually do technical integrations. But there is still a skill there. And I think, Dane, when you showed the builder, and the instructions. And there's, you know, a lot of the early Gen AI bots that are out there today that predated Agentforce, you can tell that they're not really optimized for conversation. And I'm sure everyone's used Gen AI technology in their own life. If you ask a question, it tends to give you back all of the information, more of kind of a hunting, learning, versus something you're actually having a concise conversation with. And so in a service or a sales context, the person asking the question doesn't necessarily know everything that they have a problem. They don't even know how to fully describe their problem. So you need to have a conversation. The best human agents in a contact center really can tease out what the real problem is through a conversation. So turning it from this incredibly powerful data access system into something that you can truly have a conversation with, there's a skill there. So it's this term that a lot of people don't know that are kind of new to this with Agentforce or coming in, don't know this term of conversation designer. Since there's been AI automation and chatbots, there's been somebody who's designing those conversations, this combination of linguistic knowledge, user experience knowledge, even systems design knowledge to put together a coherent conversation. So that we have been doing this forever. We're actually the only systems integrator that has we've always had a dedicated conversation design team because we've been doing bots and voice for so long. So we've been doing this for a long time and we know how to get a great conversation out of it. And the other piece that I mentioned at the beginning and Patrick mentioned too is that the power of this technology is incredibly powerful, but how do you actually operationalize it and fit it into your system? What performance are you getting out of it? And what is the quality of the conversations that are happening? So it's incredibly powerful to have these amazing conversations, but just like a person, not every conversation is going to be perfect. So having the quality monitoring in place to highlight, these are some conversations that we think a human should review and make sure that it's working as it can be, and then optimize the performance back. So all these, you know, you can set it up quickly and much more quickly than a traditional bot, and it has more coverage and power, but the actual operating of it is where we can help. So I want to go next slide here. So we have launched to the market and it's getting a really, really good reception, Agentforce Live. So Dane mentioned there's all different variations of this. If you're on Meow, not on Meow, if you're on a bot, no bot, just chat. Any one of those configurations, we're offering this $20,000 live in 4 weeks. We will get you up and running in a pilot for a couple of use cases of Agentforce. So you can actually see it in prod, measure it, how it's performing. And at the end of that 4 weeks, we'll give you a readout. Here's how they performed with a ROI. And then from that, if we decide we want to go full production, want to migrate over to Meow, whatever we have to do, we will guarantee the outcomes. And that's one of the things that's unique about us as a company. Because we've been in this space for so long, we know what works and what doesn't work within bots and within that framework. We are comfortable guaranteeing business outcomes when it comes to Agentforce technology. So this offering is what we have available today, and I'm happy to put this live with any one of our customers. So our guarantee, to sum it up, since we've been a company, we have built products, smaller products around the large products of Salesforce that help make it usable for our customers. And that doesn't change with Agentforce. So getting a more interactive UI. So Agentforce is text-based and you get text back. Having images and video, being able to slice up the text into more digestible pieces, all of that we have around our UI UX enhancer product. I mentioned analytics already. We have tools and products to measure how it's performing operationally. And the last one is our quality management product, to be able to measure the quality of every conversation, highlight the ones that we think need to be reviewed that aren't going as well as I just mentioned. So we have products that can be used to make Agentforce easier to operate. We have the experience I mentioned in conversation design, and we're the first people out here doing these. We've already done, I think, almost 20 pilots with Gen AI even before Agentforce, and then with the Agentforce pilots, we're doing them actively. So this is something that we know how to do very well, and we're going to guarantee the results because of all this experience. So that's really why we are differentiated in this space and how we can help you on this journey, because any company that isn't investing in Agentforce or putting Gen AI into their stack is going to fall behind. This is one of these technologies that's truly transformative. So any questions that that anyone has. Anything coming in on the Q&A? I think you have a Q&A chat, right?
I see
All right,
one
here's
here.
one.
Oh,
Go ahead,
Tom.
Dane. Go ahead, Dan. You got it.
Sure. So there's a first question here is, can agents create custom decision trees within Agentforce to guide their sales process or lead generation? So within Agentforce, you can complete decision trees and you can give instructions around decision trees. Now, this is something that's only available for admins and those that have the rights to actually create the builder or agent builders. So when we say, can an agent create custom decision trees? Not unless they have access to the agent builder. But can you create decision trees within Agentforce to guide sales process or lead generation? Yes, it's definitely something that is possible and well within the means of Agentforce agents. Now, one thing I would suggest when looking at that is that you're not just rebuilding an Einstein bot within Agentforce when you look at the decision trees. The beauty of what Agentforce brings is the ability to think through what should the next action be or question be based on the information that's in the conversation, right? And so you don't necessarily need to do a predefined decision tree as much, right? I encourage you to kind of look at other options. The second part of that question was how can Gen AI within Agentforce assist agents in predicting client behavior and improving their strategies? So this is actually an interesting question. Agentforce is a pretty awesome and robust tool. And often Agentforce now is being associated with every Gen AI capability that's on Salesforce. So there exists Gen AI capabilities that are outside of Agentforce that you can just launch during your typical experience, right? So an example of that is, let's say you had a case come in and you wanted to summarize what happened on that case. You can just use generative AI capabilities on Salesforce to provide a summary of that case, right? You're not necessarily looking at building out a full agent to provide that capability.
And I think Dan, on that second question too, when you step back from this for a second, it's new, right? And Agentforce is the first truly commercial version of Gen AI that you can put in your stack and goes through, security and everything. It's not just something you're playing with on the side. And when you think of as it matures and people use it more, today when you're doing automation, I'm thinking in the frame of service and in a contact center, when you're building out automations, you spend all of your time building the automations, and that's where all the energy goes. When it comes to Agentforce, that energy shifts from building to optimizing, like the building of, so you can get significantly more coverage. And what's going to happen is, in service centers and contact centers, they've always been kind of the air handler for the business. Anything goes wrong in the business ends up in the contact center. And they're just doing all they can to keep up with whatever those things are. What Gen AI technologies and Agentforce is the first real commercial version of that. What it gives you is the ability to have wide coverage on these things coming in. And when that energy isn't placed towards just surviving on those, you actually can become something proactive to the business. So not just assisting agents in predicting client behavior, you can actually as a business say, hey, we have a problem in this. We have a thing going on that everyone wants to know about because we see it in our Gen AI bots. And so that connection has always been able to be there, that a service center, that a contact center can be telling the business how to improve the business. It doesn't typically happen that often because the contact centers are spending all of their energy integrating with data, trying to build out these custom automations. That when that work shifts, you can become strategic. So I think it doesn't just, like as Dane mentioned, we can assist individual agents. Sure. I think it actually ends up assisting the entire business run more strategically because it now has this insight coming out of it that tells you, hey, we probably should adjust something with our communication to our customers or with our given product because we're having all these things come into our contact center. These Agentforce agents are all busy doing this work that probably could be avoided in the first place.
Not agree more, Tom. I think we've got another one, or we've got a few here. So whether this one comes from Avijit, whether Agentforce internally uses knowledge graphs, and what are the benefits of Agentforce if it uses knowledge graphs. So I believe you're talking about data cloud graphs here, or data graphs, if you will. And what this is the concept of pulling in all related information to a specific entity. So for example, I want to pull in an account and I want to get all the cases for that account and all the opportunities for that account. And you can build up basically a graph of all of this data so that you can pull that and use that all in kind of one call. So to answer that question, by default, out of the box, it doesn't use data graphs, but it has the capability to use data graphs through actions. And so we're actually doing that with some customers when we're looking at things like troubleshooting, where we pull in full troubleshooting guides, kind of decision trees as data graphs. And we're using an action to actually pull in that data graph. Now, there is something else that you may be alluding to, which is called a vector database using what's called RAG. And that is something that Agentforce uses out of the box, which is being able to search vector databases. The next question we have, oh, go ahead, Tom.
Dan. Yeah, I'm gonna take this one, and you can jump on top of what I have to say. So, what's a better starting place, customer facing Agentforce or internal facing like Copilot type Agentforce? And I think with the maturity of Agentforce now, and that it's and you know, when AI first got Gen AI first came out, a lot of people put it in front of agents because they're worried about the technology, and that is gone now. Like these bots truly work, and so I think for the proof point, right? It's new, and so I was sitting in a service center, and I had human tasks, and I had these people coming in. I would be focusing it today on customer facing cases because it's a very clear ROI. So if you have an Agentforce to shopping, if you have shopping questions that are coming in, or if you're trying to get a quote for your salespeople, or you have a lot of people coming in with troubleshooting on the service side, like I have a red light blinking on my thing, what does it mean, right? How do I connect my phone to my car? These troubleshooting type things that come in, those customer facing ones that are generally high volume, you'll see the ROI immediately. You'll see that it can handle those questions, and you don't need to have like those things that your agents are doing today. Your agents can do the much more high value, selling and cross-selling and upselling and these kind of things instead of doing these kind of core troubleshooting, these kind of cases. So I think the customer facing now are where to start, but eventually you can see this technology doing all kinds of tasks within your service centers and your sales operations because of the power of the technology. But that's where I'd start.
And
yeah, I think that makes sense and aligns with the capabilities that are sort of available out of the box today. The other thing I would say, I'm sorry to interrupt, Dan, you're welcome to chime in just a second. I would also say, where do you know enough about your business and the variations to write good instructions? If you have experience, if you have data from chat transcripts or your bot transcripts where you think you can write good instructions for how that agent should operate relative to your customers, absolutely, that I think is a great place to start. If you don't think you have that, if you don't know, what you should tell it to do, or standard operating procedures or data to point it to around that, then I would say think about a part of your business where you do have that as a proof point, and then you'll learn from that process about what instructions or what data you need to have available in the other areas and can expand from there. One of the things I think about in terms of getting started is, where can you show early success that becomes a pull force for more technology, more use of the technology, right? So how do you start in something where you're going to be successful, where you're going to have that direct ROI that we've been mentioning, so that you can use that as a funding mechanism, either political capital or real capital, to then expand. And so, where can you be successful because you have enough data, because you have enough experience to write those instructions well? That's a piece that I would give. Go ahead, Dane.
No, I think you covered it from what I was going to say there, Patrick. So
Yep.
I think we can move to the next one here.
Sure. Yeah. How do you evaluate the customer use case to identify if Agentforce would be a viable solution to solve a specific problem? Is there a process you guys do with the customer? And I think and this is the last question I'll wrap up here. The things that a traditional bot can do well, they should keep doing well, right? Somebody contacts your bot and says, "Where's my stuff?" You look up where the stuff is and tell them where the stuff is. You don't need Gen AI technology to do that. And so that's part of what we do when we're evaluating what's going on and where to go, is we look at what are the things that are coming into the contact center, what are the things that are coming into sales that we think would leverage Gen AI and which would not. And so that's it's a combination of something that really needs a conversation is likely going to be something we want to use Gen AI. Something that's really a one hit and look up data and give back, you probably don't need to leverage Gen AI for that. So this future where you see Gen AI technology, Agentforce doing so many tasks, it's not that it does all tasks, right? There's things that are very well served by today's technology. So we definitely see a hybrid approach going forward. So
and we do have some sort of IP, if you will, or best practices around making those business value calculations and scoping out the ROI. We've done that our whole career at this company, very, very outcomes-based company. So therefore, the assessment part of what we would do is very focused on those outcomes and the ROI from it. So we have a whole process around that we apply to Agentforce just like we do to other projects.
Yep. So Dane, you want to go last slide here? So I wanted to thank you everyone for taking the time here. I hope you learned something. I think as always, Dane is the show. So it was a great job, Dane, on the demo. I think showing the product is really powerful and seeing what it can actually do. So again, I'm Tom Hebner, VP of Agentforce. Please reach out if you'd like us to engage and help you on your journey. And we're happy to build out pilots. We're doing a number of them right now, and it's incredibly exciting time. It's fun for me to walk into a customer and tell them, yes, we can do all those things you want to do. Where for the last 20 years, it's like, we can do some of those things and we'll build this and we'll do it together. There's always kind of a hem and haw when it came to building out automation. And really it's as far as our imagination can go and our data can support, let's go. So very excited to get the opportunity. So please reach out with any questions. Thanks, everyone.